Well, hello there. Today's video is on statistics, and there are usually maybe one, possibly two statistics questions on a test. It's not the most popular kind of question, but it's relatively easy, so we should dig in. Now, between test one and two, there's only one statistics question, and that is on test two, section four, number 13. So we're going to go through that, but then I want to also offer you some other types of examples and other concepts in statistics that would be important for you to know. So if we read number 13, it says, a researcher conducted a survey to determine whether people in a certain large town prefer watching sports on television to attending the sporting event. The researcher asked 117 people who visited a local restaurant on a Saturday, and 7 people refused to respond. Which of the following factors makes it least likely, and I would underline least likely, that a reliable conclusion can be drawn about the sports watching preferences of all people in the town? Okay, so let's review. We've got a large town, and we want to know whether people like to watch the sporting event on TV or go to it live. So they ask 117 people. 7 don't answer. So actually they have 110 responses. And then from there, they're saying, well, which of these makes it least likely? So in other words, which answer is a problem in gaining an accurate response? So they go, it's a large town, and then they go to a restaurant and they ask these people there. Now, many people, when they first look at this problem, they look at A and they see sample size and they think, well, 110 responses may not be a large enough sample size for a large town, and they choose A. However, and here is a little tip about the SAT. When you have one of these study or survey questions, the answer is most likely about the location. And in this case, the answer is D. We're just going to cut to the chase here, and then I want to tell you why. So the location is a restaurant. And the most important thing about doing a study is that you have a random sample. So how do you get a random sample? You just go to the plaza where everybody goes and you just randomly pick people from that plaza. You don't go to one restaurant. The sampling is not random enough. Okay, so that's that. Now, other types of questions would be, for example, let's say they survey 100 people who are have trouble hearing. Okay, so they have poor hearing, and 50 get a treatment, and 50 get no treatment. And then the question is, what is an appropriate conclusion to draw from this if the people who got the treatment improve their hearing and the people who don't get the treatment don't improve? Okay, so here's the setup. Can you say that the treatment improves the hearing better than all other treatments? Certainly not, because it doesn't talk about any other treatments, right? So you have to make sure that the answer that you choose is completely relevant, and it's going to be a rather narrow conclusion. You certainly can't say that this treatment is going to improve the hearing of anybody who takes the treatment, because everybody who was surveyed or treated had poor hearing. So the answer has to only include people who have poor hearing. And so more likely, the right answer is going to be something that is not definite. It'll be the people who have poor hearing are more likely to improve if they're given that treatment. So things like more likely or less likely or Approximately, right? These kind of a little bit wishy-washy words are the words that are going to be the answers for statistics. Because remember, statistics are not facts. It's just a small sample size, and you can't make kind of overarching, absolute, definite conclusions from them. Okay. So another thing I want to go over is standard deviation, because that shows up occasionally. So standard deviation is, well, let me just write this first. And okay, standard deviation is how far a group of data varies or drifts away from the mean. So let me show you something. We'll show you in terms of a curve. Okay, so let's say this is the mean or the average, and all of the data points are, well, they're all over, right? They can be out here, but most of the data points are going to be within this range here, right? As you can see, this is where the curve goes up, and this sort of houses most of the data. Versus this kind of curve, where you can see the range is much larger, right? And you'll have all kinds of data points and maybe just a couple out here, but mostly they're housed underneath this huge curve. So we have a standard deviation that's small or relatively small compared to this large one. Okay, so standard deviation is how much the data points vary from that mid line. Okay, that's all you need to know, other than they could give you the data like this in terms of a graph, or they could give you data in a kind of a table format, right? Where they would have, a bunch of data here and a bunch of data here, and you would have to determine which standard deviation would be bigger or smaller. Okay. Is there anything else that I want to talk about? I think we've covered it. There's not too much. You need to know standard deviation. You need to know that location and random sampling is important. And you need to understand that the less solid or less certain answers are more likely to be the right one, more likely to be the right ones. Okay, my friend, see you next time.